Imagine this. You wake before sunrise, compelled to perform a ritual you don't understand. Your hands move, lighting a candle, arranging stones in a circle, whispering words lost to time. Why? What dormant part of you insists on these acts? Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, a hidden lexicon of symbols etched into humanity's DNA. But what if these rituals aren't just habits? What if they're desperate attempts to communicate with the shadow self, the stranger living in your mind? Consider the spiral. It appears in Neolithic caves, Hindu mandalas, galaxies, a shape etched into tombs and toddlers' doodles. Coincidence? Or proof that certain symbols bypass logic, speaking directly to the primal brain? Why does the cross stir devotion or dread? Why do humans kill and die for a piece of colored cloth called a flag? These are not choices. They're eruptions from the subterranean vault where your deepest fears and desires fossilize into meaning. You think you control your life, yet every day you enact tiny ceremonies, stirring coffee counterclockwise, checking locks thrice, refreshing feeds to numb the void. These are spells cast against chaos. But who is the sorcerer? You, or the ancestral ghost imitating you? Nietzsche warned, when you gaze into the abyss gazes back. What if your rituals are the abyss's language, a code pleading to be cracked? This is the great question. Are you the dreamer or the dream? The rituals, the symbols, they're not answers. They're sirens, luring you to the edge of awareness, where the psyche's language becomes audible. But to listen, you must first confront the paradox. Your conscious mind is a flickering candle, the subconscious, a supernova, and it's been waiting for you to stop talking and finally listen. The rituals control you because they are not yours. They are relics of a war waged in the mind's basement. Carl Jung's shadow. The exiled self creates symbols to bypass your sensors. Dostoevsky's Raskolnikov didn't kill for money. He murdered to test if he could transcend society's puppet strings. You repeat rituals for the same reason, to feel real. But what if society itself is a hallucination, a shared delusion built on dead men's dreams? Nietzsche knew all things are subject to interpretation. Whichever interpretation prevails is a function of power, not truth. The problem isn't that you wear masks. It's that you forgot you chose them. Edgar Allan Poe's narrators didn't go mad from guilt. They shattered because they glimpsed the lie of a coherent self. Modernity's great curse? You're told to be authentic, yet authenticity is a product sold by the same forces that profit from your fragmentation. Viktor Frankl argued that meaning is man's primary drive. But what happens when the symbols that once meant God or purpose now mean click here's? You dig graves for the parts of you that refuse to die. Schopenhauer was right. Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Your rituals are rehearsed rebellions, tiny revolts against the cosmic script. But who wrote the script? Huxley's Brave New World warned of pleasure as control. Today, algorithms hijack your subconscious, feeding symbols that hack your dopamine pathways. You think you're seeking love, truth, beauty. You're replaying trauma loops, dressed as sacred quests. Even your rebellions are branded. The anarchist's tattoo, the minimalist's pristine home, all tributes to the gods of identity. The trap is so perfect, you swear you're free. This is the hidden problem. You are not the ritual maker, you are the ritual. Every symbol you cling to, flags, filters, faith, is a tombstone for the self you buried alive. Sartre called it bad faith, lying to yourself to escape freedom's vertigo. Lovecraft's cosmic horror whispers a darker truth. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown, yourself. Your subconscious isn't a demon to exorcise, it's an ocean to drown in, and the shore is dissolving. You tell yourself you're choosing what to watch, buy, believe. But neuroplasticity doesn't care about your illusions. Every click, swipe, and prayer reinforces pathways, carving gullies in your brain where symbols flow like prison rivers. Algorithms exploit the sunk cost fallacy. The more you consume, the harder it becomes to question why. Huxley's soma is here. It's the dopamine drip of personalized content. Your rituals now serve Silicon Valley's gods and the altar. Your prefrontal cortex, rewired to confuse novelty for meaning. You're not thinking, you're being thought. Bandwagon bias is the silent puppeteer. Why do we let symbols like a nation's or trending dictate morality? Because the amygdala fears exile. Dostoevsky's Grand Inquisitor knew, so long as man remains free, he strives for nothing so incessantly as to find someone to worship. Social media didn't create this, it weaponized it. You mirror others to survive, trading authenticity for tribal approval. The result? A society where self-expression means choosing which prefab identity to cosplay. The more you perform, the less you exist. Lovecraft was right. The most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. Confirmation bias isn't a bug. It's the psyche's immune system turned against itself. Your brain punishes dissent. Chemically, dopamine surges when you prove your tribe's myths. Cortisol floods when challenged. Poe's telltale heart wasn't guilt. It was this neural civil war. You think you're defending truth? You're protecting the fictions that keep you sane. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. But what if that space is colonized? Your choices are just Stockholm Syndrome, with the symbols that hijacked you. The ultimate conspiracy? There are no conspirators, just empty rituals echoing in the dark. The consequence? A fractured self. Sartre's bad faith metastasized. You've outsourced your soul to symbols that never loved you. Flags demand blood. Brands sell belonging. Religions trade awe for obedience. And you're a ghost in a labyrinth, mistaking the walls for the world." Schopenhauer warned, every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. But your field of vision is a script written by dead men and algorithms. The tragedy isn't that you're trapped. It's that you taught yourself to love the cage. The first act of rebellion: shatter the mirror, not the glass. The illusion that you are one self. Jung's path to individuation begins by swallowing your own shadow. Nietzsche's Übermensch becomes chaos, to dance above it. This is not self-improvement, it's self-annihilation. The heretics knew, to break free of God, you must first become the devil. So burn your flags, delete your personas, let the algorithms starve. The chains aren't real, they're symbols, and symbols can be rewritten. Your psyche is a locked room. You've always held the key. You were just taught to fear what it opens. History's rebels weaponized symbols against their creators. The Buddha sat under a tree and unlearned. Van Gogh painted madness to escape it. Galileo whispered, and yet it moves, refusing to let the church's story eclipse the stars. Their power, they replaced rituals of control with rituals of creation. You want freedom? Steal fire. Hack your dopamine loops. Write a new myth. Camus said rebellion is the only way to live without appeals, to reject both master and slave. So dance naked in a cathedral. Plant a garden in your LinkedIn bio. Let your insanity be your insurgency. To rebuild, you must first collapse. Schopenhauer's will, the primal force driving all desire, can be weaponized, redirected. Your trauma isn't a curse, it's a dialect. Learn to speak it. The Kabbalists decoded God by shattering sacred vessels. Do the same with your past. Every humiliation, every heartbreak. These are runes. Forge them into a map. Dostoevsky wrote, "Suffering is the sole origin of consciousness. So plunge into the wound. Let it baptize you. The subconscious isn't a basement to clean. It's a universe to reclaim. You are not healing. You are hacking existence." This is how revolutions begin, not with marches, but with mutations. A single neuron fires differently. A dreamer refuses to wake. You are not one person. You are a parliament of selves. Vote out the tyrants. Frankl survived Auschwitz by finding meaning in suffering. You survive the modern camp by finding meaning in meaninglessness. Let your rituals become riddles. Let your symbols rot. Build a new language from silence. The greatest rebellion is to live as if you've already transcended, because you have. The cage was never locked. The door is a mirror. Walk through. Here is the unbearable truth. You were never separate from the symbols. You are them. Jung's collective unconscious, Nietzsche's eternal recurrence. They converge here. The rituals, the masks, the gods, all extensions of your psyche's hunger to meet itself. Lovecraft feared the void because he misunderstood it. The abyss isn't empty. It's a womb. You are the nightmare and the dreamer, the wound and the knife. Every ritual ever performed was a handshake between your conscious self and the shadow that whispers, "Build me a body. I am your unborn." You thought freedom meant escaping the maze, but the maze is your skeleton. Dostoevsky's underground man raged against the machine, only to realize his rebellion was the machine's most intricate gear. Psyche's existence precedes essence holds a secret. Essence is existence retroactively lying to itself. The symbols, the rituals, they're not cages. They're the language your atoms use to debate what shape to take next. To break free is to misunderstand the game. The only way out is to dissolve the player. You are the game. The prison, a self-portrait. This is the ultimate rebellion. Stop seeking meaning. Frankl's logotherapy inverted become the void. Schopenhauer's will bled itself dry, chasing purpose. Let it. When the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, he didn't find enlightenment. He ceased to need it. Your rituals, perform them as jokes. Your symbols, wear them as scars. Camus a Sisyphus, happy not despite the rock, but because he sees the absurdity as sacred. The subconscious isn't a king to obey. It's a drunk poet. Let it ramble. Let it ruin you. Let it build you again from ash. The final realization. There is no end, no truth, no self. You are a verb disguised as a noun, a process of becoming written in smoke. Jung called it individuation. Nietzsche called it amor fati. Call it nothing. The rituals will continue. The symbols will mutate. But now you'll dance with them. Not as master or slave, but as co-conspirators. Huxley's doors of perceptions weren't meant to open. They were meant to dissolve, so let them. The cosmos forgot itself to become you. Now it's your turn. Forget, create, repeat. The door was never there. The mirror is breathing. And the labyrinth, it's asking you for directions.